Thanks for joining us tonight, or today, folks. It feels like night, wow. Hopefully in the next 45 minutes, we'll walk you through a story that we think is valuable, and it's the story of how Citrix's IT organization really has transformed itself and approached this journey of getting to the Citrix Workspace. And certainly, I'm sure with the excitement coming out of today's keynote, there is probably a really good dialogue to have here around this foundation that's needed with the Citrix Workspace in order to get to the intelligent workspace and all the other great new features and services that we heard about this morning. So just to start off, let me just introduce myself and give you some brief background. My name is Joe Verderami. I joined Citrix about a year and a half ago. I was a Citrix customer for almost 20 years in the financial services industry. So I was a customer intimately involved with the technology and sitting on your side of the table, if you will, for quite a long time. I was also fortunate to be part of the customer council. So we'll do a little bit of Where's Waldo for a minute there. That's me, about 5 years ago. And so, through customer council, really got the opportunity to work with the executives and other customers to look at Citrix's portfolio. And so through that time, really became intimately close with the executive team and with folks like Stan Black, who about a year and a half ago became our CIO and CSO, and asked me to come over, to which I should have said no. I'm just kidding. I said he was crazy. But it's been a really, really great ride, to be honest, and hopefully we'll walk you through a little bit of what we've done. And in that journey, I've had the fortunate ability to come to work for Renee Flores.
Work for, really? That's a with, not a for. My name is Renee Flores, and I'm part of the same team as Joe and reporting into Stan. I've been at Citrix about 11 years, and I've worked in various functions within Citrix. And about a year and a half ago, actually it'll be 2 years ago in July, Stan and I had lunch. And he said, I have this vision for an IT organization, and it needs to be different than the way we're doing today. And part of that is I want to bring in a competency that is not existed, and that's around employee experience and engagement. And so I'd been working with our customers like Joe, to help IT professionals look differently at how to approach and solve problems, specifically around the end user. And Stan said, stop doing that for them and come do it for me. We're gonna change things up. I said yes too. And it's been an amazing ride, because there are some people sitting here in the audience that are part of that leadership team. And it's all of what we're going to talk about is not just what Renee and Joe have done. It's what we have all done within GTS to decide to make these changes and actually move forward with them. I think when you're looking at, this is an image of the shoe. I don't know if you guys know the story of the shoemaker's children. Right? The shoemaker made these beautiful shoes that the entire village used to wear and prance around with, and they looked beautiful. And everybody thought this was amazing, and the shoemaker was just the best ever. And then, you walk into the shoemaker's house, and the shoes that his own children didn't quite have the same shoes that he was putting on the villagers. And I think when you think about Citrix and IT, you would think, oh, they must have everything, and it's perfect, and they're ready to go. And
we prance around a lot.
Yeah, in these fancy shoes. But what I do think was important, and I think it became very obvious to Joe and myself, and when you have outsiders kind of coming in, is wow, we really have some work to do in order to be prepared for where Citrix is going as we're changing our model and what we're about to do, and also as we look forward to more sophisticated products like Workspace. So. The first thing we wanted to do is look at what is in front of us. What problems do we need to solve?
Look, I think these problems are not unique to Citrix. I think that as an IT company, we face some of the same challenges that other IT companies do, right? Our releases were heavily driven by the product and engineering team. There's nothing wrong with that, right? It leads to early exposure to the technology. The challenge was that a lot of the process really wasn't developed because of that. Product and engineering built something, the core IT organization kind of adopted it, engineered it, and put it out into the environment. How they did that, who they did it to or for, really was driven by relationships. There wasn't formal structure or process around it. And as a result, the experience wasn't really that great. There was some folks who it was developed for, that it probably worked very well for. But the majority of the organization really were just being handed new technology. And it was almost what was written on the tin, right? As any technologist in the room knows, it's not just about what the technology can do, it's what you make of it based on the user requirements and the business demand. And so when you're not focused on end user experience and you don't have those formal processes, it's not really the fault of the technology, it's you're really not doing the rest of the pieces of work that are needed. And so really we're much more of an R&D organization, kind of just delivering new technology for the sake of getting exposure to it and giving that feedback back to the product and engineering team. As a result, Citrix IT also wasn't really a strategic business partner, right? Again, we were kind of the doers, but we weren't really looked at by the business to hear about what the technology could do for them or to share their challenges and understand how technology can kind of drive their business. And when it's all said and done, it didn't really make Citrix IT look a whole lot like yourselves. We weren't operated, we weren't structured, and we certainly weren't delivering the way a customer would be. And so with that, we kind of made a conscious decision to make a major transformation into what we refer to as Customer One, both in the way we were aligned, the way we engaged with the business, and the way we actually approached bringing on new technology, both Citrix's as well as any other third-party products that were necessary in the ecosystem.
Yeah, and I think you brought up a really good point, Joe, that I know Citrix isn't alone because I've had the opportunity to work with other customers, and a lot of those pain points and roadblocks were very familiar with conversations I had had with other IT organizations. So we said, okay, well, what are we going to do about that? And we really started from scratch. So it wasn't just take what we have and keep going. We said, we've got to make a real concerted effort here to think differently. And what we did is we brought in, it was about a year and a half ago, not just our leadership team to figure out what we want to do or how we're going to do it. We brought in stakeholders from across the business. We brought in David Henschel to hear what his vision was. We brought in end users to give us feedback on the things that we were proposing. We brought in employees from the IT organization to look at the work we were doing as we were doing it in order to make sure that we were going to deliver something that made sense and was digestible and would deliver what the expectation was. So we worked on a new 3-year vision statement, and Joe alluded to that up front already, which is we will act as a customer for Citrix. We will do that due diligence so that the product that we consume is ready for our customers to consume, and we're going to do it in a way any other customer would. And it was an important shift on that. Secondly is we have to change from being in a traditional IT deployment type of organization and to be much more consultant driven. And that has been a huge pivot for us to be able to look out to the business, and instead of reacting to the things that they ask us to do, we take a much more consultative approach up front in defining problems, understanding what needs to get solved there, measuring those, and then delivering them. And then thirdly, it was really about putting much more effort into our people. We believe that our people will be the key differentiator. Many of you know skill sets are so important when it comes to IT. So us looking and make sure that we were putting that effort behind the team was critical. But you don't just talk about a vision, you also have to change the way you operate. And our operating principles are our foundation. They're the scaffolding by which what we are now calling global technology and security work. And this is a foundation that all of our employees can rely on when thinking about how are we going to do things in the future. And these are the 5 that we came up with. And the first, not came up with, designed, I should say, and really thought through. And the first one that I want to point out is this influence revenue. You think, how does IT influence revenue, right? This is important for any IT organization to understand what is your superpower and what do you bring to this organization. And in our case, being customer one for Citrix products, it puts us in an up. Everybody says, how did you do it? Citrix, how do you do it? And we have to be prepared to answer that and it help our customers be more successful. We have that opportunity. We get it in EBCs. We get it through LinkedIn. We get asked regularly, please help us do it well. Let us learn from the mistakes that you made. And that in turn will help you do it as well. So big push on that. I want to talk about operating as one unified team. We were a highly fractured organization, and people kind of stayed in their swim, like they did this, and that's all they did, and we really didn't span across. Breaking that down, I think, is one of the most critical changes that we've made, and still today, I'm looking at some of the leaders on the team. We are all in this together. There is not a ripple, a chink in our armor that anybody can find. We are unified against this vision that I brought up earlier. And with that has been extremely successful in how we're going to do this. And the third thing, of course, I want to talk about is becoming fiercely end-user centric. Of course, because that's what I do. No. The reason I want to talk about it is because it is a game changer to make that pivot from being a very inside-out organization, very like we've deployed, we're good, we're done, to flipping that around and being much more outside in. Your employees expect it, your leaders expect it, and it's not a typical competency, but to have everybody within our organization know how important it was to operate this way and change. It's not just about me doing it, it's about everybody across the organization shifting how to do it. So it's very, very critical.
So as Renee talked about it, right? I mean, I think transforming the organization is the foundation, right? We needed these principles, we needed alignment, we needed to really be operating the way other customers' IT organizations do in order to really genuinely approach something like adopting Workspace. But one of the first things that we noticed coming into Workspace, as I'm sure you all have by now, is Workspace isn't another product. Certainly not virtualization and not on its own. There's a lot more complexity to doing Workspace than what we are all as traditional Citrix domain experts were really accustomed to approaching. And really what that was about is that as domain experts in the Citrix space, we're very specialized for the most part, right? The products and services we delivered were really fit around the Citrix virtualization environment. And so adopting Workspace really translates into a shift, a pivot from being a specialized organization and discipline to really one around general purpose. We actually talk about the company's model and market positions changing to general purpose. But that transcends into the technology space. Is adopting something like Workspace really gets us into a general purpose model where we're really talking about a lot more cross-discipline engagement and certainly a lot more integrations across your environment than we would have traditionally been looking at or ahead of us when we're doing something like Storefront or Zen App or Zen Desktop or even Zen Mobile. There's integrations in there, but the amount of cross-discipline engagement you can even see today when we talk about intelligent workspace and armored client and things, it's well breached the domain that we've all traditionally been in the virtualization space. And so we looked at that and we said, look, the traditional IT silos that have existed for years really aren't going to suit us well anymore. And that doesn't mean everyone's got to redefine their organization, but it means you have to appreciate that doing something like Workspace and that foundation that you want in order to get into all the goodness around intelligent workspace and so on that Citrix is going to deliver involves at least collaboration across these teams and integration that hasn't in the past. And I don't just mean technology integration, I mean process, I mean relationships and everything that Renee was talking about as well. And so at more of a technical level, we looked at Workspace and we went through and said, what are the integrations we're really going to need to look at that we hadn't traditionally needed to do some of the Citrix platforms that we had done in the past. And you're talking about identity. This isn't just, hey, I'm going to connect NetScale or AAA against a Radius service. This is truly looking at how you do identity, how you're doing multi-factor auth, and the integration of that into Workspace and other cloud services to have a unified authentication experience. It's about your desktop architecture, physical, virtual, on-prem. You're going to put VDAs in the cloud, or you're going to put them only on-prem. You're going to put brokering in the cloud. There's all these integration components that are very different than when we're just standing up Kit on-prem. SAS, the extent to which SAS was ever a part of our world as virtualization experts was Zen App, publishing a URL, right, in Zen App. Now SAS as an integration is deeply embedded in Workspace. Where's your SAML provider? Who's the IDP? Right? These are all elements that I would venture most of the Citrix domain experts in the room don't even own within their environments. It's not your purview. It lives in a different world within IT. And back to that previous slide about IT silos, you have to build those relationships and start to work across them in a very different way. Because developing SaaS and integrating it in a meaningful way to drive experience is going to involve deeper integrations than we have in the past. And the same thing with collaboration. whether you're a Citrix Files customer or not, right? Citrix Files is an aggregation point from a UI and experience perspective, but whether you have files on-prem, off-prem, 3 different clouds or not, deeper integrations are necessary here in order to be building a more valuable service for your customers. And so look, we did it. All right, punchline. Citrix IT, we've deployed Workspace in production. It's running across the company today. So how do we do it? Traditional endpoint clients, as you would expect, across trusted and untrusted platforms, BYO and corporate, whatever terms you'd like to use, leveraging Workspace app, leveraging our on-prem NetScaler infrastructure, our existing IDP and our existing multi-factor auth platform. Workspace as you've seen it, advertised and publicized with all of its goodness, right? Analytics services behind it, access control, secure browser service, the embedded browser service, SAS integration, aggregating all the resources that we talk about, but not just the new ones. On-prem, all of our traditional virtual app and desktop services. We have some that are brokered on-prem with full farms. We have some that are broken in Citrix Cloud. They're all there. They're all in one place. They're all accessible through the same authentication model. So this is what we're running today. This is our reference architecture. It's up. It's running across the employee base fairly successfully. And I think it actually starts to drive a really good story with customers like yourselves in terms of how can we do this. Now, 5 years ago, this presentation would be done. Because as IT professionals, we delivered, right? We left. But that's not really the case anymore, nor should it have ever been. It's about now the closed feedback loop. And how do we ensure that what we delivered actually made sense? Did we know what we were talking about? Did we deliver what's valuable? And so we have to really focus on those aspects as part of the life cycle. And Renee will help us talk about.
Yeah, when I started in GTS, and I'm actually looking at one of our team members in the audience, and I said, how do you know you're successful when you release? He goes, I released. I'm good. Okay. I wonder if our employees in the business would say the same thing. The answer is no. I mean, clearly no. Our employees are looking to be productive. They're looking to be efficient in what they do. They're looking to use the technology that we deliver in a way that makes sense to them and in a way that they consume. I think going back to the keynote and the whole thing around employee experience, which of course was everywhere this morning, is more real than ever because everything becomes more and more transparent and people have choices. The people who are talented have choices. And it's up to us to make sure that we retain that top talent. So let's walk through this a little bit. So I just had a session on end user experience. I saw a handful of you go from this one to this one, so a little redundancy here, but it's important to bring it up again. The consumerization, the expectation of our employees to turn something on and it work without a manual is real. And as IT professionals, we've got to shift out from being that, well, they have to consume this because I'm giving it to them, into let's create something that they love. Okay, and that delight and that difference and that differentiator is aspirational. And it's okay to have that aspiration because it'll make the difference between what you have been doing and what is right for your actual end user. On top of that, I talked about digital natives. That is who is walking into our organizations from college day. That's a true term, digital natives. Definition of that person is that they have never not had an iPad in their hands from the day they were born. They've worked on apps their entire life, right? I can't believe I'm even saying this, but it's true. These are the folks that went to middle school and high school and college and didn't have textbooks, right? They're expecting that they can be productive anywhere they want to be in a very seamless way without having a lot of baggage around them, right? Why can't you deliver that to me? Game changing, and we've talked about the different various generations coming in. This is the one probably that scares me the most. So what does it mean? How do you know them? Because it's one thing to say, okay, they're coming, but then it's like, how do I get to know these people? What do I do about it? This is what we've done with Workspace, and this is how we do things. So establishing and knowing where are they and where are they within our environment. Are they in there today? Are they not in there today? Have they logged on? Haven't they logged on? Are we retaining them? Are they coming back to us? Okay? These types of insights are critical to be able to share across the business. They get very curious about this. This is one of these pieces that you say, I know more than you do, Mr. Business. I know what your end users are doing on a daily basis when it comes to technology. Important to establish this. Secondly, what we've done is we built personas. And personas have been key for us to understand how do the various people across Citrix consume information, where do they consume information, how do they want to digest technology, how do we know who we're even dealing with. So whenever we build anything, we think about these people. Okay, that's the one thing is that we do dish up technology, but we are serving people. And people have emotions, they have sentiments, they think about things, and not one person is the same across any organization. And I don't even just mean by function. So a lot of people like to build functional personas. Well, that's my sales guy. And then I got my, I don't know,
marketing.
HR person. And then and they're all different personas.
I'm telling HR you forgot about them.
I think one of the biggest insights that we found is that's not true. Mindsets are run across functions, right? You can have innovative mindsets in HR, and you can have innovative mindsets in engineering. You can have people over here who really don't want to see the technology until things are in really good shape in engineering. I never thought that. Oh, and I've got people in HR who are like, give it to me now. So it's really important to know who you're serving so you have keen insight into them, and then layer on top of that their feedback. Now, surveys are very typical within IT. We'll survey. We're going to send out a survey, and they're going to tell us what they think. No, they don't. We just got data. I just read it the other day. 70% of employees will not be honest on a survey that's sent out by an employer. They don't tell the truth. So how do you find that out? Because you want to know what's going on inside their head. Why are they making those decisions? And then how do they feel? So we launched Workspace. Are you looking at my...
I love this guy.
Yeah. This is actual sentiment that we just collected this past week on Workspace. So when we get this type of data, we give it back to product, so it's on that closed loop. But not just about are they using it, numbers, great, because people can be on it because they have to be. That's not success in our world. Success in our world is are our employees all smiley faces, and do they feel good about what they're using every day? And that's a drastic difference from just looking at usage. I talked to Joe. I think I talked this in my last session,
Yep.
But I was saying, you know, you're at a restaurant, right? And the manager comes over and says, "How's your dinner tonight?" What do you say?
You always say it was good.
It was good, right? It was good. I don't know about you, but I'm always going, I wish this.
Well, you wait till they walk away, and then
right, then you talk to your wife about it. Yeah. Okay. That's what you need to get to, right? What are they not telling you that they're thinking in those thought bubbles in their heads as end users that they don't share with you in the survey or at various other times? Then you're going to say, well, how do you do that, right? That's how do you get inside people's heads? You have to make yourself open to hearing from them. And
I've seen that guy in a lot of meetings, by the way.
What?
You always see that guy in the meeting, looking the other way, talking to somebody.
Yeah, it's true. How do we do that? So we use methods that are not going to be familiar to IT. You're going to say, I don't even know what you're talking about with a journey map. That's the key difference, is think about what competencies do you need to have within your IT environment in order to do these things. So this is actually a journey map we did for our rollout of Workspace. What did we do? We brought in, actually we did it virtually. I used a product, an online product, and we virtually journey mapped 20 end users around the globe to understand how they would approach a new product launch. Like you go back way over here, right? So what would happen here, and then what happened, and then what happened, and then what happened, and we would get their thoughts, feelings, and emotions at various stages of consuming technology on a launch like this, understanding things like moments that matter, right? What is that, moments that matter? Well, we identified four places within this journey map that if we didn't focus on that, it wouldn't matter what we did on this launch, we would lose our end user along the way. Things like journey maps, and you listen, and you hear them live. They're in the room with you, or they're doing it online with you, and they're telling you those thought bubbles because they start to trust you because you care. And next thing you know, they're willing to do that for you. And that is gold. And then imagine you have IT, end users, and bring in some of your business partners and have them listen in on this stuff. It's awesome. The other thing we did is we created frictionless ways for our end users to give feedback. Frictionless, meaning you don't have to go to this place, click on this thing, fill something in, hit send to give feedback. We just opened up a Slack channel on the community and we said, go. When we launched our first environment out to Citrix, we had over 6,000 verbatims of feedback on our Slack channel that we extract. We take them off the Slack channel into CSV files, even if it's manual, and we start tagging themes so we can get to that sentiment. This becomes the place where people talk. It became a new water cooler for our end users around this product. But again, very frictionless, easy for them to get to. It wasn't about, of course, IT would be like, let's set up a process to give the feedback, right? Let's put it in service now, and then they can click in. And
I have to write something, don't I? I mean, that's the whole
right.
point.
Exactly. So thinking about how would they best be served in order to give that feedback back to us. Very important channel for us. So to summarize it all up, it's really about shifting how you think and approach whenever you're going to do a launch like this. It's not about getting it out and getting the check mark done. It's really about shifting to this outside-in approach and starting with the end user. We did journey maps. We did all these things before we launched. So we had the insight prior to launch, so we knew it could be more successful.
And so to look back at some of the lessons that we've learned, first and foremost, it's not on here. If you're an IT professional and you want to impress your experienced counterparts, use words like journey map and sentiment. Get you a lot of big points until they ask you what it means, and then you're sorry, I can't help you there. So look, we learned a lot going through this, right? We talked about it most of the week, and you'll continue hearing it. Understanding your end users is absolutely critical. You can't deliver technology if you haven't first understood what they need. And I know that kind of sounds a little bit obvious, but I think anyone who's honest with themselves as an IT professional, it's not always really been the way we've approached things. And that's not always been a bad thing, right? On the infrastructure side, even in the end user services side of the space, right? Technology kind of was technology for a very long time and a little bit black and white. We talk about experience, choice, and security, and you talk about the types of technologies that today we're trying to introduce and that they're really being driven by when an employee is walking in the door telling you they want to work with. You have to understand what they want to use. You have to understand the way they work. You also have to have buy-in across the organization, because if one part of the organization is changing, but others aren't, this is going to be even that much more difficult. That cross-discipline engagement is critical. It just has to be there. I would venture a guess that there is not one organization attending Citrix today, let alone in this room, who's so monolithic that an individual is going to own every piece necessary to do this. So that cross-discipline engagement is going to be absolute for you. Whether it's simply that the identity folks don't work in your team, or the application developers don't that own SAS, right, and own the SAML services, right? You have to have that, so you have to have that buy-in across the organization.
Yeah, and what we talked about this, really looking at your organization's maturity, it's a good time to look at that and think about where are we? And are we ready to have this conversation across your company? Because the general purpose solution isn't just, virtualization may only be a small subset of the people that you serve. And then you're looking at workspace, it's going to go all the way across. Are the relationships stable in the business? Are we ready to do this? Is our organization ready to be successful? The last part is this shift. I'm kind of went over it enough, but to be able to position yourselves and make that shift to the outside in, and Joe said it perfectly, employees don't understand why they can't do things. And they're going, we don't necessarily have all the answers anymore. So how is it that IT will be valuable in the future? What are you going to deliver that the business or an end user doesn't have already? So those thoughts, I think, are important to delve into about how do you deliver value back to the org. And I think that's the wrap, right, Joe?
I mean, look, with that, that's our journey, right? That's our story. And again, the punchline is not simply that we've deployed Workspace. It can be deployed, fully supported and integrated into your existing enterprise ecosystem. We're customer one, right? That gives us access and opportunity to drive the availability of technology solutions that then in turn allow us to do this, which should mean that you can do it. And the rest of what has gone around here in the story is just to share that it's not just about taking a new technology out of a box, unwrapping it, and walking through the technology features and integration. It really does involve a transformation around your company, or at least the way you approach the technology. So I think with that, I think we have a good amount of time here, and would love to hear from the audience and take any questions.
Yep, or comments. There's a mic here and a mic here if anybody wants to come up and. Wow, we were that good? I don't think we were that good, Joe.
Every point.
I don't think so. It was a journey.
It's all about the journey mapping, sentiment.
I mean, really, we also have Mike Emerson in the room who runs all of our operations for Citrix IT. So there's a lot of brain power. Stan Black is here. So if there's any questions, good time to ask.
Ask a question.
Can you get on the mic?
Thanks. Yeah, we'll start on the left.
Yeah,
sorry, Andrew, go ahead.
Wondering how you feed back what you learned bringing this to your environment to Citrix. Is there a good feedback loop?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. It's a really powerful relationship that we have with product and engineering right now. Anything that we do, and we monitor and measure and get that feedback, we loop it right back either into the design of if it's something that we've launched, because all that feedback should keep going back into redesign and iterating and making sure that we're getting it right. Or you may even identify from that feedback and sentiment a new opportunity. How we're working it with Workspace, and I'm pointing back there because there's somebody from the engineering organization. But what we've done is we've built a really strong collaboration. So our employees are giving that rapid feedback as customer one, and we're putting it right back into product and engineering. And they're actually, that Slack channel that you saw has product and engineering people looking at it all the time. That's new. I mean, that type of tightness of collaboration across the organization it's awesome. I don't even know how else to say it. It's long overdue, and it's been brilliant to watch because it's only going to make you as customers be more successful with our product. Since we've stood up the environment to look like a customer, it puts us in a position to be there first and to help get all of that any insight about how the end users feel back into the people that make those changes. So it's
I mean, look, the customer one model was built exactly for that purpose, right? If we don't, back to the challenges we discussed at the beginning, if we don't look and feel and operate the way you do as a customer, then there's no value to us saying we would be able to do it, right? And so we made a very pointed effort in partnering with product and engineering to say, look, we need to do it the way an enterprise customer does it. We kind of know we can do it if we kind of break all those rules because we are Citrix, but that's not going to help anyone. So we work diligently to build the environment completely integrated into the enterprise ecosystem, and that's where we made a point of pointing out in the reference design, it's our third-party multi-factor auth, right? It's our existing NetScaler investments. It's our on-prem resources, right? We had to work closely to get there. The idea being, right, and the punchline is so that you can, right? But we did that leveraging our proximity with the teams, right, to outline what are the pieces that are missing that an enterprise would need in order to be able to build this thing integrated into their existing environment and not have to do these massive lift and shifts. And so that's really been the premise behind Customer One. And look, it's not easy because if we were able to click through it, you could have, right? But we had the opportunity through the proximity to the team and the relationships to kind of churn very quickly with the feedback process through the pieces that we're missing and bring them, into a production environment. And by the way, disclose, we don't run anything in production that's not a GA piece of code. So this isn't, oh, well, you have alpha code or you have whatever. We don't. We only run GA code in production. And so when I say we're able to run this, I mean we're able to run it. And I'm happy to show any level of detailed architecture with folks.
And fast.
Yep.
And being in that collaborative relationship with engineering and product.
Andrew.
Yeah, and you kind of answered my question partly. As it relates to when you guys were formulating your success criteria going into this project, if you think about the creation of that criteria and you weren't Citrix and there were legacy applications involved, would it be the opportunity as someone who sells your solutions out to the world, would there have been an opportunity to kind of drag in some additional Citrix products and technologies into the solution?
You're talking about during the challenges phase?
Correct, yeah, as when you were defining requirements.
I honestly think we needed the foundation because we're doing exactly that now, right? We've built this kind of normalized environment, if you will, that I think we feel more comfortable as representative of a customer environment. And so we look at security challenges, we look at experience challenges. We now can genuinely look at things like the embedded browser. We look things like secure browser service and MDM and genuinely look at how those Citrix services are going to meet those requirements across the company. One of the challenges we talked about was, in fairness, where we had done that in the past, it was less for the sake of solving a business problem and more just simply for the sake of getting exposure to the technology, which from an architecture perspective clearly is the wrong direction because what's your success criteria, right? What the FAQ says, not the business problem or the security gap. And so I think the answer is kind of yes, but now, not back when we were kind of in a very challenging kind of place.
Yeah, I think that we found that, again, a common challenge is you add new things into your environment and you don't take anything out. It's becomes like the ugly house that, had a really good foundation at some point, but you just keep putting stuff in there and things get a little messy. That's normal. Any function, a lot of functions do that. And that's been a lot of this past year and a half too, is really streamlining what we're doing and removing and stop doing a lot of the complexities that we ourselves had been guilty of putting into the environment, which is allowing for us to also have a nice, clean approach to delivery.
Sir that I don't know and have not teed up any question with.
Actually, this is a legit question off the cuff that he doesn't know what's coming.
This is their one-on-one, you guys, just so you know.
I am a Citrite, but for the record, I've been a Citrite for 2 weeks. And prior to that, I was on the other side of the fence. And this question actually comes from that side of the fence. You touched on it during the talk around specifically SAS integration. Did you find any challenges internally with trying to aggregate them in? I mean, in my experience in the outside world, those who own Workday are not those who own Jira, are not those who own fill in the blank SAP. And did you have to convince people to give up some level of control or to agree to come into the unified experience?
So I think it's a combination of both Renee's world and mine, to be honest, because I think the experience side has driven what we want the experience to be with those services, especially when we get into intelligent workspace. But more generically, from an architectural perspective, obviously knowing who the owners of the platforms is one thing. But it was really a transition of publishing an application, and publishing it is basically making it look like it works on a desktop, right? To really doing the infrastructure integrations. So where is SAML authentication? Where is my SP initiator or my IDP? You have to really walk through authentication more and the integration workflows because you're leveraging things like NetScaler Gateway Service. And so our challenge wasn't so much finding out who, it was really that relationship needed a lot more than simply, hey, we're gonna put your URL in a browser on a server and publish it, right? It was more, they needed to be part of this delivery model and this experience now of accessing their service more natively through the workspace.
And I think to add to that, the yes and on that is us, the engagement in my title is not just engaging end users, it's also engaging the business back into IT. working hard to make sure that our relationships are as fortified as possible. So going out into all hands, making sure that we sit with the different leaders and not so much like that BRM or CRM role, but more about making sure that they know they can come to us if they need us. That we've given them, we have an open avenue with them and an open dialogue. So it's not something you find out later because it's going badly. How do you establish those relationships? So it's like, hey, I've got a problem, and please help us come fix it. So that's also part of the engagement strategy is working across the business more closely, Josh, so that we can deliver knowing earlier rather than later.
I think the crude analogy I'll make is for those of you who approached the mobile space already, the intimate kind of engagement necessary with application owners to get them to work in MDM platforms. I would draw a crude analogy to that when you're talking about Workspace. It's not just what we as Citrix domain experts have done for years of kind of publishing them in Citrix and XenApp. Do we have a question up there? I think we have time for this last one.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So as one of your operating principles, I believe you called it, what are the key metrics or some of the key metrics around influencing revenue for the company internally?
Yeah, we don't measure anything. No, I'm just kidding. We just talk a lot. So we looked at immediately, like, those are engagements. So how often do we find ourselves in front of customers in EBCs, executive briefings, let's say? How often does the sales organization call us in order to be the expert to help move a deal forward? How do we looked at what are deals before, if we're in them, if we're not in them, things like that. I mean, that's the critical pieces of that. Are we at the table? Are we not at the table? If we're at the table, what does that mean to the deal or what is happening with that customer?
Part of it's also and it's probably inappropriate to call it a metric, but I think it's looking at the cultural pivot, right? When product and engineering are at the table with us and using the same language and they're embracing the operating models that we've put in place for them, we're enabling them to deliver products that in turn are affecting the growth of the business.
Yeah.
Right? There's more empirical where sales says, look, we were only able to sell because I can do this. Right? That's more empirical. When they say I couldn't make a deal, but once I was able to actually just open up my laptop and show them Workspace, I can make a deal, that's affecting the bottom line.
The show don't tell piece is huge, and being as fast as getting it out onto for our salespeople and SEs to be able to demo it out, or not demo, sorry, wrong word, to actually show actual production that they're using it every day is critical to our success.
Shifting from doing demos, which anyone who's been on the other side of a Citrix account manager and seen a demo has said, yeah, that's great, but does it really work? Right? Shifting from demo to, no, this is the way I work, right? That's empirical, right? That's what gets us in the meetings. That's what is the perception that closes deals and affects the bottom line.
And to be able to authentically tell our story like we are right now, and being able to say this is where we are without, kind of jumping around that. I mean, customers, I think it's important that we're the same as many of you and face the same challenges, and we're more than happy to talk through that with you guys and help you be more successful when you're looking at these things.
All right, look, we're out of time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate it.